Something about that match, and it's something I noticed about Sammy actually the first time in the Dallas show, and it maybe you can explain it to me. When you watch wrestling and you see someone do a move that's not their finisher, the fans know it's not going to be over. But everybody always goes for that blue thunder bomb. Every time Sammy does that blue thunder bomb, they think the pin's coming. And Dallas, the place erupted when he kicked out of a move he's never beaten anybody with. What is about the way that Sammy or anybody sets up a move like that to make people believe this could be it, even though that's not a finisher?
Right, this is what I'm going to make anybody who's been paying attention think. The move's one thing. It's the detail of building up to the move that makes the move special. If you listen earlier on, we talked a lot about the close-up stuff that nobody's going to give you credit for, right? It's because of the way he sets that up and the way he does little things that you shouldn't notice he's doing them. It's just that he does them, and it builds. It's like you can be the best writer in the world, but if you don't put and have a great point at the end of the paragraph you're writing, if you don't put the right words in before it, nobody's going to get to the incredible finish of that paragraph. He does a lot of little things, just the way he moves, the way he reacts to things, the way he does certain things at certain times, and that's why that pays off. Again, I don't want to give away his secrets about doing that, but I've already talked about that in this. You're going to go, it's the build up to it. Sometimes it's a short build up, but because of things he's done previously in the match, you are invested in him as you want him to win. That just doesn't come. You can't just go out there and do formula stuff. It's little tiny things that make it all mean something so that you actually care. Okay? I will give you an example. The greatest, I don't like the term selling. I believe once you get to a certain point, you need to learn to react. We all start off selling in this job. When you learn to react, it's a different thing. We haven't got time to go into too much of this today. But in my opinion, the greatest, if you want to call it seller, but the greatest reactor in the entire industry was The Undertaker. Especially when he came back with a more fighting style. Going into WrestleMania against Shawn Michaels, 2 matches, at that time, you knew that he wasn't going to lose, right? It was just, nobody thought the streak was going to end, right? Got to that point. It was at that point what wasn't going to lose. Here's a man who's dead, 6'8", and dead, and doesn't get to react with his face. And doesn't get to react with his face. But he does such a good job, and it's not noticeable of little. He knows the difference between getting hit in the ribs than hitting the stomach and hitting just caught, and he reacts ever so slightly to it. Going in there, now put all this into context. You know that he's not going to lose. You know that he's 6'8" and he's dead and he's not going to sell with his face. Why do people go insane when there's a false finish and he kicks out? Because of the build-up to that. And that's in a different league that a lot of people need to get to, instead of just it's studying that kind of stuff. What are the in-between things? What are the little, how do they get you to have sympathy for them? How do you get to have sympathy for a man who's already dead and you know is not going to lose? Right? So that's that out of
Yeah.
the way. Now, why do they care about the Blue Thunder Bomb? Because first of all, it's an impressive looking move. That's obvious, right?
Yes.
But it's the build up to it and the little things that nobody's going to give you praise for. And that's the problem. A lot of people nowadays, all they want is praise, and they want to be told how great they are and that they're the best at this and they're the best at that. And they want all these reviews about themselves. So I've never, ever read a review about myself. Ever. I didn't need to by the time I came. Well, there was no such thing in Europe. But when I came back and I had a group of fellas that were all brilliant, if they didn't tell me off or I I knew I was doing okay. If I came back through the curtain and certain wrestlers, when it came to America, if Ric Flair or Arn Anderson or Ricky Steamboat or Paul Orndorff was a huge person who couldn't, can't thank enough for what helping me adjust to coming over here, and so many others. But if they didn't tell me anything was wrong, and I knew they were watching, I don't need anybody else telling me, right? They're the
Right.
people that are better than me. So I go to them. If you're worried about that, you're worrying about, I've got to get the next big move in, I've got to try and get this, I've got to try and get that, instead of the quality of whatever, right? And again, everybody has a different mindset, but the in between stuff is not going to get you any praise. The detail of whatever Sammy did to get him there isn't the stuff that people praise him for. I'm telling you that now is that's what the difference maker is with him. It's the in between stuff, and then he has the spectacular stuff, the illusions, but he also is laying down a lot of close up magic before you get to the illusion. So it's not just illusion, illusion, illusion. Because if you are just illusion, 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 you can get a good run out of this. But then there's another thing that you might only last so long at it. You might get a 5-year run in Vegas instead of a Penn and Teller run.
Right.
Right.
It's a
And
fundamental.
this is a little, again, me not trying to give too much away, but I'm telling you the difference is the in between stuff. Pete Robertson, we mentioned him before, Terry Rudge, Fit Finlay, Marty Jones, Johnny South, all these people in my life Skull Murphy, when I was younger. Will your wrestling still hold up in 30 years? That's what they used to be in their different forms of it. Can people still watch it? Well, you can watch any of their stuff from the 80s and the 70s and still see that it holds up. And then you're not seeing the tricks, right? And if you don't care about that, that's okay. And if you got yourself over without worrying about that, that's okay. You don't have to listen to me. But that's only a small group of people that can get themselves over without having all these little tricks. Sami Zayn has had to work because of what's he got going for him, right? Rami, I'm not apologizing, but he's a normal looking fella, airy fella that didn't have a body and wore a mask so he couldn't show his face, and you couldn't see this. Again, going back to The Undertaker, he had a mask on and he got himself over. It's hard to get yourself over with a mask on if you have to use your body to then
Mm-hmm.
you haven't got that one thing that is the easiest thing to get sympathy with or to show anger with. You take that away. Rey Mysterio, all the great mask wrestlers, luchadors all over the world, anybody that can get themselves over without this, they do it with this, just with their body motion, the way they react to things, the way they move. Sometimes it's moves, but it's all that stuff that you've got to work on. Otherwise, one day, maybe I hope it doesn't, because I've seen plenty that it doesn't. In fact, they get worse as they get older, but they don't. It doesn't matter. They get over, and that's all that really matters is getting over. But for the majority of people, it's keeping up in your game and keeping working on your tricks and keeping something about it. Well, Sami Zayn has got over against all the odds and got himself over, and now look at him. Now look at the he's just doing stuff with Logan Paul at WrestleMania.
Amazing stuff. With
Right. And look
when
at him when he goes
Jackass
out there.
stuff.
You can't not look at him. You can't not take your eyes off him. And it's just him. It's just and look what he's got to work with. He's just a normal fella. If you look at him, if you just stood there and looked at him, you'd go, "Oh, him, a wrestler, really?" And that's true. I'll say it out loud. You go, I saw him straight, him. Oh, not as soon as he starts moving, I don't. Now he's a wrestler. Now he's something special. So that's my bit about him. And Tyler did his bit as well. Fantastic.
They're both great, and both a huge part of what we all remember as maybe the golden age or the beginning of the golden age of NXT.